Okay, everybody, welcome to a very busy Banfield program. I want you to hold on to your hat, and you're going to have to hold on to your lunch, too. Can we show the picture? We've got an exclusive picture of Bryan Kohberger that we just received that no one else has seen to date. These are pictures that we obtained from the Latah County Sheriff's Office and the digital forensics experts that watched over his phone and electronics and extracted a number of different forensics items of evidence. And these were the pictures that we've just gotten our hands on. These are exclusive. No one's ever seen them before. This is breaking news. Look, the man is locked up for life. I get it. But so is Dahmer. And we still talk about Dahmer because we don't understand why. So any piece of information that's new, however small, we hope will somehow give us some insight into the monsters that lurk among us. And these new pictures were selfies that Kohberger had on his phone just for himself and for no one else. Pictures he never sent, pictures he just kept. Not only that, we've got other breaking news about Bryan Kohberger and other photos of him that I'm going to show you from his phone, including one in particular that I think might show an injury that he got during the murders. But there's breaking news about Bryan Kohberger being a serial stalker, potentially right before the murders. Two other women apparently came to the police and told them about daily visits they were getting from Bryan Kohberger at their work, uninvited, and also at their homes, uninvited. These are women he didn't know, who didn't know him, but he sought out and harassed like this. We're going to tell you all about that in a moment. I also have two new bombshells about that 11-year-old girl who gave birth in her own home, her squalid, fetid home in Oklahoma, only for the police to find out the DNA of the baby matched the DNA of her stepdad, who was promptly arrested, as was his wife, the 11-year-old's mom. Well, tonight, we now know why that 11-year-old ended up eventually in the hospital. No thanks to these parents. It was someone else who rushed her to the hospital. And we also know there's one more person who's now been arrested. And let's just say it's a family affair. This is Grandma. Grandma, as it turns out, used to be the daily babysitter for the 11-year-old pregnant mother and her 5 younger siblings. Okay, we'll explain all of that in just a moment. I also have an appeal to you, Banfield Nation. Police in California need your help tonight. We showed you the video of it was one awful wedding guest, actually Crasher, who stole the gift box from this wedding. Police believe because of this video, they caught the guy, but they also caught who they say is his accomplice, the getaway driver. But they need your help for one big piece of the puzzle. I'm going to explain all that in a moment, give you a phone number to call, because I think if you're watching out there, you might be able to help completely solve this crime and help the bride and groom. Let's start here. Full disclosure. For 2.5 years between Bryan Kohberger's arrest and the day that he was sentenced to life in prison for quadruple murder, we counted the days in between court appearances. Not just for the issues at hand, as we really felt they were important, but we wanted to see Bryan Kohberger. We wanted to lay eyes on the person who police said had broken into a crowded home in the dead of night and slaughtered 4 young and innocent people, one after the other. Kids, just students, living their best life. And now, of course, Kohberger has admitted to all of it. And it is possible we'll never see him again. But you're about to see him like you've never seen him before, like the monster that he is, and that is not hyperbole. We've obtained these exclusive photos taken by Bryan Kohberger himself after the murders and pulled out of his phone by forensics experts. At least 3 photos have never before been seen by anyone other than Bryan Kohberger and by the police who caught him. They say the killer snapped these pictures for himself and himself alone, that he kept them on his phone, but that he never sent them or shared them with anyone. And one I guarantee will take your breath away like it did me. We'll never know his purpose or his reason for taking these pictures. But I can also guarantee you this, each is so much more revealing than he ever could have imagined. And I could spend this entire hour poring over each and every one of them, and I will go over many of them in just a moment, but there's more breaking news. Never before seen evidence that the quadruple killer murderer was also a serial stalker as well. Reports from the Idaho State Police obtained by People magazine show 2 women suspected Bryan Kohberger was stalking them at Washington State University right before the murders at 1122 King Road in Moscow. Kohberger was a PhD candidate in that criminology department at that school. And the women said he would make daily visits to see them at work. And then he'd make unexpected, uninvited, and highly unwelcome visits to their homes. One of the women was an employee at the university bookstore. She said Bryan Kohberger seemed to have researched her, knowing personal details that she'd never shared, including her name and the hours that she'd worked. She further said in August or September of 2022, and remember, that is just months before the quadruple murders, she was changing in her bedroom at home when someone knocked on her window. She called for her husband and the person ran off. Another time, she heard someone on her porch. Her husband came home right away, and she says a white car drove off moments later. And we all know by now that Kohberger drove that infamous white Hyundai Elantra. The other student worked in Kohberger's own department, criminology. She said he would seek her out constantly, quote, almost daily, end quote. She told police she was working late one night when she saw Kohberger walking around outside. He made eye contact through a window with her and then entered the building, at which point the woman said she hid in a bathroom. Another time, she got a phone call from a neighbor who said someone was lurking outside of her window at home. Soon after, she learned that she lived fairly close to Kohberger. And she told police she wasn't the first person to have problems with Bryan Kohberger at Washington State University. I want to bring in a NewsNation staple. Brian Enton has been covering this case since day one. He's our senior correspondent at the network. Let's first just talk about those breathtaking photos, Brian. I only saw them just within the last couple of hours for the first time. And I think the first thing that came to my mind was, here's someone making faces like a monster into his phone, but it reveals perhaps for the first time a twisted personality that we know exists behind so many other of his photos.
Yeah, I mean, look, all the photos that we've seen of him, Ashley, whether it be the few selfies we saw before this or the pictures of him, gosh, they're so creepy, every new one that pops up. But the pictures that we've seen him in the courtroom or when I've seen him, he's always so emotionless. And that one where he's showing his teeth and his eyes look so strange and he's got his lip up, showing his teeth, making that monster face. It's unlike anything we have seen from him before. Again, in terms of all the times we've seen him in court, all the pictures that have been released, we have not seen anything like this. I don't even know how to describe it. I mean, I don't even like to look at it very much because it's just so creepy.
Here he is trying to flex shirtless in a bathroom. Don't ask about the look on his face. Perhaps it hurts someone like this to flex. But there's something that we discovered, Brian, as we zoomed in on the photo of him shirtless and somehow giving the salute. I do want to let everyone know that the photo of him shirtless that you just saw is just after the murders, and the weird, scary mouth picture was also in December of 22 after the murders. I want you to look at this zoomed-in picture of him saluting. Look at that ring finger knuckle. Just look closely at the wound on that knuckle. I don't know for sure if that is a wound that he received about 4 to 6 weeks earlier during the murders, but I can tell you this, that is the exact same knuckle, same position. where right after the murders, just hours after the murders, he gave a thumbs up selfie in his bathroom, and that knuckle was bandaged. So again, that's the wound that looks to have been healing for upwards, Bryan, of 4 to 6 weeks. The same knuckle that was bandaged the morning of the murders when he gave a thumbs up. Do we have the thumbs up selfie picture? I'm just going to ask my team to grab it. We're trying to get photos as quickly as we can because we just got our hands on these. But to compare this knuckle picture with that wound on the ring finger of his left hand, it is the same knuckle, same position. And you had to really zoom in on this picture. You had to really zoom in on that left hand, his ring finger, to see that there was a bandage. This is just hours after the murder, and this is in his bathroom, in his apartment in Pullman, Washington, at the university where he worked, Washington State University. And 4 to 6 weeks later, in December of 2022, after the murders, you can see that wound healing on that knuckle. Bryan, it's just so eerie to think that he's just so proud of himself in so many of these pictures, knowing full well what he's done to these kids and what society is now doing, desperately trying to find him.
Yeah, you think about the wound, you think about the brutal attack on those kids, the fact that we know at least Kaylee Goncalves was awake and alert enough from what we've been told to try and fight back, which may explain some of these injuries like the wound that you saw there on the knuckle. And in terms of taking the selfies and almost wanting to, it almost feels to me like he was wanting to document his life and his emotions as he lived on the run, knowing what he did. And again, I don't even know how to describe it other than creepy now getting this look back, looking into his eyes, knowing what he's now admitted to, and knowing that this is after he brutally murdered 4 innocent college kids. And for whatever reason, I mean, we know he didn't have friends and that he wasn't sending these out. It does appear these were just for himself. Which just sort of boggles the mind. And the shirtless one I keep wondering about. I mean, you just had those photos a couple of nights ago from when he was much, much bigger, from when he was very, very overweight. And we know that he's very careful about his diet now and was around the time of the murders. I don't know if that's why he had these shirtless pics. This one, I still don't even know how to explain. I don't know how to explain it.
I don't either. It's so disturbing. There's another very disturbing photograph that was taken on December 29th of 2022. Sad to say that's my birthday, so I'll not be able to shake this image. He's wearing a hoodie, a black hoodie, and it's very eerie because he's staring into the camera and he just looks so sallow. Let me see if the control room can pull up that scary, hooded photo from December 29th. It's just one day before his arrest. This is in Pennsylvania, as we would now know, Bryan, because as we've learned in these exclusive photos that were given to us from the forensics investigators who pulled everything from his electronics and his phone, if he's taking this picture December 29th, it is the day before they burst into that bedroom or that home or wherever he's taking it and locked him in handcuffs and took him away for good.
Yeah, and remember, this is around the same time they were also able to determine from going through his phone and going through his computer, Ashleigh, right around the time of this photo, this is when he was searching different serial killers and researching serial killers. So you sort of think about that in connection to him taking these selfies of himself, and you can kind of get into his mind right before the arrest.
Okay, as we're looking at some of these photographs, and I will tell you that the hiking pictures look to be June and August of 2022, and July and August, the thumbs up pictures, not the one in the bathroom, the famous one after the murders, but other thumbs up pictures were from July and August. So many of them were taken in the summer right before the murders while he's out hiking with that favorite backpack of his. Just quickly touch on the new stalking claims, Bryan, that, these 2 students said they for sure felt like they were being stalked. And we know that Bethany and Kaylee said they spotted a silhouette of a man while they were walking Murphy the dog. And Kaylee had told other friends, many of them, that some guy had followed her out of the Winco store all the way to her car. It sure sounds similar.
This comes as no surprise to me. First of all, when you look through all of the police reports from Idaho State Police and you hear the stories from his classmates and colleagues at Washington State University, he was very creepy with the women there. Many of them thought he was borderline stalking them. So these reports don't surprise me, and I just keep thinking back to what we've heard from so many people who knew Kaylee, that she told so many of them that when she let the dog out about a month before the murders, there was someone she believed in the woods right behind the house staring at her. That lines up so closely to these new reports from women in Pullman, Washington, who said that he was outside their homes staring at them. It really makes you wonder if he was out there stalking the murder house, Ashleigh.
And again, as people are seeing all these photos, remember this picture, that picture right there in the bathroom was the morning of the murders, looking like he's freshly showered and very proud with a bandage on that ring finger. Can I ask the control room to pull up the other bathroom pictures where he takes selfies in the bathroom? Because you can see in this one, there's no shower curtain, right? I think by this point, either he's taken the shower curtain in the back or it's that little sliver of white. But in this one, there is a shower curtain. This is in his bathroom at his apartment in Pullman, Washington. And this picture is taken in July of 2022. So several months before the murders. But he seems to have a proclivity to take selfies in the bathroom, which may be why he ended his murderous night with that cleaned up, freshly showered, thumbs up picture in the bathroom with the bandage around the ring finger. And potentially, if it's a shadow or if it's the shower curtain, he certainly got rid of the shower curtain, because as a criminology student, he would know if you shower blood off you, there may be microscopic evidence of it all around the shower curtain as well. Bryan, thanks for helping me sort of sort through those. I know it was last minute. I really appreciate it. Thanks for doing this.
Yeah, thanks, Ash.
And I just want to, say to you, the viewers, that some of you may argue, move on. He's put away for life. It's over. But I say the same things about every serial killer that I still follow, because I still don't understand. BTK, I still follow that. I want details. I want to know why. Any other piece of the puzzle, here's what it makes me feel. I don't know if it's the same for you. It makes me feel like maybe I will know just that much more to being able to spot the wolf in sheep's clothing, because they're walking among us. And I can tell you right now today, they're walking among us today. And I, for one, want to know anything I can to identify them. Don't know if it's possible. Still to come on this program, two shocking twists in a story that was already far too shocking. That 11-year-old Oklahoma girl who gave birth at home. We now know how she ended up in the hospital after that horrifying ordeal. And it wasn't because of these guys, the parents, who were ultimately arrested, him for impregnating her for making it happen, allowing it. And now guess what? There has been a third arrest. Yeah, that's Grandma, the 11-year-old's babysitter, all during the pregnancy, who police say did absolutely nothing to help that child, while the mother did nothing either. So what is the status now of the 6 siblings who were removed from that home? And does the 11-year-old new mother even get to see her own newborn? Story's next. It's pretty clear that Dustin and Sherry Walker didn't want the whole world to know that their 11-year-old daughter was pregnant, especially since police say Dustin, the stepfather, got her pregnant. Police also say they gave that little girl exactly 0 prenatal care. And since she and her 5 siblings lived in squalor with no running water in the house, a house littered with feces, it is likely that not one of those little kids had ever seen any sort of doctor. But the whole world did find out. when the 11-year-old girl turned up at a Muskogee, Oklahoma hospital an hour after giving birth in that filthy, squalid home. When we first reported this horror story, it wasn't clear how she got to the hospital or why someone ultimately decided to take her there because she gave birth in the home. But now we know. Now we know. The county prosecutor says paramedics, not the family, brought that girl in and brought her in by ambulance, and that it was EMS that was called because that child was hemorrhaging. The 11-year-old, I mean, when I say child, not the newborn, though I know it's easy to get them confused, both of them being children and all, 11 years old, newborn. EMS responders were actually the ones who cut the baby's umbilical cord. Cherry and Dustin faced a judge last week for the first time since their arrests. He is charged with child sexual abuse. Natch. They say his DNA matched the baby. But because police say DNA indicates that, mom, is also charged with enabling it, enabling the child's sexual abuse. And both of them are also facing 6 counts of felony child neglect, 1 count for each of the 11-year-old's younger siblings, who are 9, 7, 6, 4, and 2 years old. And get this, mom and dad aren't the only ones in the family locked up tonight. Remember Sherry Walker's mother, who defended Cherry and Dustin to a local reporter and even tried to pin the 11-year-old's pregnancy on a, quote, curious little 12-year-old boy from the neighborhood? Is it, though? Is it all you know? I don't know that it's all you know, Grandma. Because at the time, while Grandma would only call herself Michelle, we now know her last name. And I kid you not, her last name is Justice. Justice, although it's spelled with a U-S at the end, not an I-C-E. Turns out Grandma is also now facing 6 counts of child neglect because prosecutors say she lived right across the street from her grandkids. And get this, Grandma was supposedly their caretaker all the way through the little girl's pregnancy. So really, Grandma, I ask again, is that all you know? You were her caretaker for 9 months. She's 11. Want to bring in Justin Shepard, a digital journalist who's been on this story from the beginning. You know him online as just in the nick of crime. Justin, I don't even know where to start. My stomach just heaves when I think about this story and this little girl. So I'm still curious about how EMS ended up on the scene at all. Do we know anything more about that?
Well, what we know is that EMS was called, the girl was hemorrhaging. So while we don't have anything official, my best guess to this is that this got really bad, which makes sense because this is an 11-year-old child giving birth to a full-term baby. There was hemorrhaging, and they probably figured, well, we'd rather face this than, you know, a death charge for not calling. And so EMS comes out, they cut the umbilical cord and rushed the girl to the hospital.
And so I don't know how much time, progressed between the birth, the hemorrhaging, EMS being called in the hospital, but from what I understand, it's a couple of hours. Do we know if she was, like, near death?
Well, I think when you look at a case like this, you know, childbirth is already a pretty major, it's a major medical event. And so now you're talking about a small child, an 11-year-old, a preteen, giving birth to a full-term baby, something that her body's not meant to do. You know, it could equal death to a full-grown adult woman, much less a child. So I think that she was already in that position or already risking that just for being in the position that she was in.
What more do we know about this arrest of Grandma? I keep looking at that interview that she gave through the car window, and I'm just trying to read into her face now that we know she's been arrested. I don't know, for all we know, she keeps talking about the 12-year-old that got curious. What 11-year-old keeps talking about the 12-year-old that she's sleeping with? It makes me sick.
Well, and I agree with you. This case is really unsettling in a lot of different ways. And all I can venture to guess, because we've seen cases like this before, it seems like this child, all the children in the household had no adults that were protecting them. They were enabling Dustin to be able to do what he was doing. There's no way they didn't know. And that's one of the reasons why she's charged, because she didn't report. She didn't handle the conditions of the house, which, as you said, were a squalor. And so that's why she's being held on $75,000 bond. With the rest of them, because, I mean, there's no way she didn't know either.
10 seconds left here, but I just need to ask you about Sherry Walker, the mother. Well, she's now a grandmother herself. The mother of the 11-year-old is also pregnant at the same time as her own 11-year-old daughter. The birth was imminent. Do we know if she's given birth yet?
From what I understand, no, she's not, but she is due any day now. In fact, it was reported by a local channel, Channel 6 in Oklahoma, that back on August 26th, that she was due any day. So I am quite sure that she is due any day.
Well, they have medical facilities in jail, or they rush you to the hospital in handcuffs and she can give birth there. Probably a much nicer birth than her own daughter had. Justin, so good to have you. Thank you for this. Justin, the Nick of Crime, everybody. It's good to have you, Justin Navarro. Thank you.
Thanks.
I just said Justin Navarro because I'm mixing up two guests. That's Justin Shepard. Now I'm going to Tarlika Nunez Navarro, former judge, prosecutor, and defense attorney, now the dean of St. Thomas University College of Law. I'm discombobulated, Judge, because the picture of Bryan Kohberger off the top of this show has just sort of sent me, and I'm trying to get my lunch back inside. Judge, talk to me a little bit about the 11-year-old girl went through pregnancy for 9 months. She has naturally made a bond with a newborn baby, even though she's 11. Is there protocol in the DCF system throughout the U.S. for what to do about this? Does this 11-year-old get to be with her baby? Do they feel it's better if she doesn't bond with her baby? Like, walk me through what happens next.
Well, thanks, Ashleigh, for having me on. And I am completely disturbed by this case and the Kohberger case. So I'm with you on that one. This case is truly about unimaginable neglect by the two people, actually the three people that you should be able to trust the most with your life. And they completely neglected her, abandoned her, betrayed her. And it's really disturbing. So to your question, yeah, this case, because it is sexual child abuse under the age of 12, immediately the government steps in and they have an emergency hearing to remove the children as well as the 5 siblings without a shelter hearing because of the emergency protocol that they have to put into place to get the children out and into safety.
So do they try to find a foster home within the state system where the 11-year-old can be looked after with her baby? And I mean, are there foster parents who will do that, take an 11-year-old child and that child's child?
Yes, so DHS makes sure, first and foremost, to place them in a stable environment, a safe environment. First line of defense is always a family member. If there's not a family member, then a safe foster care program. Here, you would think they'd be placing them in a therapeutic foster care program because of the trauma that they have probably already gone through and what they have seen. Also, an attorney will be appointed to this young 11-year-old to help manage her affairs as a parent. She does have parental rights. She does have rights to be with that child, especially during these crucial developmental years. So they should keep the mother and child together and siblings if they can. It's going to be a challenge in this case, but that's the way it should be done.
Oh, that poor little girl. I mean, all the kids, but specifically this little girl, everything she's been through. Judge Navarro, thanks so much for your wisdom. Come back again.
Okay, thanks, Ashleigh. Appreciate it.
Good to see you. All right, coming up, when you're caught on camera shooting someone to death in cold blood, your legal options are, shall we say, limited, but they're not non-existent. Take, for instance, the sheriff, seen on video, clear as day, executing a sitting judge in chambers. There you go, right there. His lawyers want this case thrown out. Nothing to see here, no murder. Can they do that? After the break, 2 reasons why. Oh, yes, they can. It happens. It happens. Cases that appear to be slam dunks sometimes are, then sometimes they're anything but. And that is certainly the case with the biggest homicide ever to come out of Letcher County, Kentucky, home to just 20,000 people on the Virginia state line. It's been almost a year since the now former Letcher County sheriff did this, emptied his service weapon into a sitting judge who was literally sitting in his chambers. And though this act, as you can see for yourself, is forever preserved on video, the defense wants the murder charge thrown out. They say grand jury testimony from a state police detective is not exactly the same as what he said to someone else, specifically at a separate court hearing. But the sheriff/shooter/defendant there also wants the world to see his medical records, specifically his mental health records, that his lawyers say that grand jury never saw, even though they asked, they wanted to. Weren't allowed to. I want to bring in NewsNation producer Allison Weiner, who has immersed herself in this story for months. Okay, I mean, it is really starting, Allison, to sound like this defendant, the sheriff/shooter, is trying to mount an insanity defense and say, everybody needs to see how crazy I am, so open my files. Did the grand jury truly ask for these, and were they denied?
Yes, they did ask for them, and it wasn't that they were denied. It was that only a small amount of information was given to them as they were asking these questions. And it's kind of interesting because it lets you see that the grand jurors have been probably hearing reports about this case, and that they kind of had some sort of understanding that there was, issues here with, was the sheriff okay afterwards? How was he acting afterwards? I'm sure they probably saw that video because there was a flurry of questions. And what actually happened here is that the prosecutor and the key detective, who also testified at the preliminary hearing, that detective held back some information, probably at the direction of the prosecutor. This all sits with the prosecutor. And while we all know that grand juries tend to indict people, and that probably would have happened here, there was information that was withheld. What the detective ended up saying was not exactly the whole story.
Yeah, but I'm with you. You know, the ham sandwich thing. This grand jury saw that video. They're going to indict. I don't think they would have cared one iota if they'd missed out some information. But you're right. The process is the process. Big issue I want you to sort out for me.
Here's the problem.
Before,
sure.
Real quickly, this is big because Sheriff Steins picked up the judge's phone and then called his own daughter, Sheriff Steins' own daughter, from a contact in the judge's phone. So all of us have been going bananas saying, why does this judge have the teenage daughter's number
in the judge's phone?
Okay. Straighten that out for me. What is the story there?
It wasn't in the phone. Let me just explain it. It wasn't a contact in the phone. What ended up happening is that the sheriff was trying to reach his daughter. She wasn't answering his calls. So ultimately, he took the judge's phone, and she probably answered that number because she didn't know what it was. But she wasn't answering the sheriff's calls. He was acting erratically, as we found out from some of the medical records that were in the motion. But really what happened here is the grand jurors actually asked, because they knew that there was they wanted to know for sure, was there a real investigation done into the judge's phone? And what the detective ended up telling them is there was an investigation into the judge's phone. They checked apps. They investigated all of the different phones to make sure that there was no communication of any kind, and that's what they found. And then the jurors asked a follow-up, and they said it again. What if it had been deleted? And they're like, we checked that as well. There is no evidence to show that there was any communication between the judge and the sheriff's daughter or the sheriff's wife. And that is something that we hinted at and we reported earlier, but now we have the grand jury testimony and the testimony of the detective to, supplement that reporting.
Okay, I'm glad you cleared that up because it's been driving me crazy. If that were true, it would be the creepiest connection possible, that the dead judge would have had some connection to the shooter's teenage daughter. But thank you for clearing that up. Allison, great work as always. Thank you so much for this.
Thanks for having me, Ashleigh. It was good to see you.
You bet. You too. Allison Weiner, she's such a good producer. She breaks so many great stories. Okay, still ahead tonight. Before Warren Jeffs became just another child sex offender in a Texas prison, He was a self-proclaimed prophet and arranger of many, many marriages in a polygamous sect, some say a cult, the FLDS Church. Warren Jeffs left his mark in numerous ways, all of them bad, including in the Arizona desert, where he built caves intended to hide his secrets forever. But it turns out forever came quickly, because those secrets are coming out tonight. After the break, you're going to see them for yourself on a roving video all throughout his creepy, rapey home. Don't miss it. Warren Jeffs is now precisely 14 years and 1 month into a life sentence for sexual assault of a child. And even now, the secrets he tried so hard to bury in the Arizona desert, they're coming to light, and I mean that literally. If the name Warren Jeffs rings a bell, it should, because he cloaked his specific brand of pedophilia in religion, called himself a prophet, and he led the polygamist FLDS Church, a fringe offshoot of the Mormons. And he collected for himself more than 80 wives. Yeah. Celestial wives, he called them, which, meant that they were married spiritually, not legally, because, polygamy is illegal. 24 of those so-called celestial wives were underage, also illegal. Before the indictments came in multiple states, he lived with his enormous family in a sprawling Arizona compound. And under that compound, way down below it, concealed from the world, lay secret caves and passageways that were dug out to hide Warren Jeffs. Presumably from the police, but maybe also from the apocalypse that he was so fond of preaching about. Mike King, who is a crime and cult investigator and who's appeared on this show several times, was given an inside look into Warren Jeffs' compound and those caves. And yes, Mike King was allowed to bring a camera. Our own Brian Enton caught up with Mike King and his videos at CrimeCon.
After the raid on Short Creek in 1953, if you remember the history lesson, the FLDS took this stance of never again are we going to allow this to happen. Not only were they preparing for the end of the world from a religious standpoint, but they were temporally preparing for it. And they started digging caves that I heard about all the years I was investigating out there, but I could never prove, I could never find. When I talked to members of the FLDS, this is a church of 13,000 people. They would say they don't exist. We've heard about it, but they don't exist. I would talk to leaders in the church who fell away and said, nah, it doesn't exist. And I said, Willie, there's too much smoke. They got to exist. And it wasn't until about a year later, Brian, Willie actually called me and he said, you've always wanted to stay in the house I built for Warren Jeffs. And if you remember, that was a house built for 87 wives. And he said, I'll make you a deal. If you agree to come out here on your own, I'll let you stay the night in the house alone. I'll clear all my wives, all my kids, everybody out of the house. He said, I'll give you free reign. Well, what he didn't know was I had testimony from people for years that would tell me where the secret passageways were and other things. And he turned the keys over to me. It was kind of a crazy moment because my wife was like, you're gonna do what? And I ended up spending the night in this home that he built. And I found those spaces where the false walls were and other things.
You did, just by yourself there?
I was by myself. Isn't that the dumbest thing you've ever heard of?
Just exploring by yourself?
Me and my Glock, I might say.
Yeah. Were you nervous at all?
I was very nervous, but how do you turn down something like that? Anyway, at 6 o'clock the next morning, I hear a tap on my door, and that kind of brings you out of a sleep. And I open up the door, and there's one of his wives standing in her prairie dress, the typical FLDS hairstyle. She hands me a key and a set of coordinates. He said, Willie said you could go inside. And I went inside the secret caves.
Super creepy. My thanks to Brian and to Mike King for that. Mike's podcast is called Profiling Evil. Make sure you check it out. Okay, folks, coming up, we all know cops can do some pretty amazing things. And when it comes to the wedding crashers who stole more than $60,000 worth of gifts last week in California, the cops have made short work. They caught The two guys they believe took the gift box, but they need your help, Banfield Nation. After the break, what they need from me and from you to put these guys away. Next. If the wedding crashers who stole $60,000 from a bride and groom in California thought they were going to live happily ever after, they must have been in sickness or poor health. Because the cops there have hauled in two guys from L.A. they believe stole the gift box and made off in a Mercedes SUV. That's the good news. Crystal clear surveillance video gave them a lot to go on. The thief was dressed all in black, looking like both a wedding guest and a member of the waitstaff who was milling about the reception for quite some time before the theft. As it turns out, he had a partner driving a getaway car. The Glendale police say they've recovered about 10,000 of the 60,000 that was stolen, and that's where you come in, Banfield Nation. They're asking for any help to recover the rest of the bride and groom's gifts, but also they want more evidence to lock these guys up. So if you know anything, please call the Glendale police at 818-548-3127. Let's do this, everybody. Thanks for watching, everybody. Stay tuned. Cuomo is coming up next.